So now we are all done with our code and our web page the way that we want it. But we want to spend a little bit of time talking about JavaScript numbers. So it turns out JavaScript only has a single number type. And so it doesn't matter whether it has decimals or not, whether it's an integer or floating point number, it doesn't matter. Those are both considered numbers. But a number there's lots of methods that work with numbers, and you might find that some of these are handy as you're doing some JavaScript coding. So one of the things you do is you can convert it to a string. Now we saw how this could happen automatically when you use the plus operator and use that plus operator with a number and string, then that number is converted automatically. And you'll see that there are times when numbers are converted automatically. But if you want to manually convert it, or some case where you're not using a way that it'll happen automatically, you can use the toString method to go ahead and convert that number to a string. And notice how that works. It's the number.toString method. So this is actually a method associated with the number object. To exponential, so you can change it to exponential notation. To fixed, again, we're using this object.method format. So here's the object, that's the x is this number 9.656. And then we say to fixed. What this does is it specifies how many digits after the decimal place. And notice that it rounds. So we're saying we want this number with 0 decimals after the decimal place. So 0 digits after the decimal place. And to get that 9, what it does is it rounds. It doesn't truncate, it rounds. And so this would actually be a 10. If it were 9.2, then it would round down to a 9 and would return a 9. Here we want to say we want 2 digits, and so it'll give us 2 digits. Again, it will round that last digit. What about if we ask for more? So here we on 4 and 6, we're asking for more. It will fill it with zeros. So that's a toFixed method, and that allows you to kind of set how much of the number you want to display, it's great for output when you want to specify that. So there are actually lots of different methods that you can use with numbers. And if you want to go the other way, so we saw how to convert a number to a string. What about if you wanted to convert a string to a number? And that is allowed as well. There is the number method, and this can be used to convert a variable to a number. So here we have, so you could have a variable that had the value true, and if you did the number method on that, it would return 1. If it's false, it will return 0. Then notice these different kinds of strings, and what it will return, it kind of ignores the white space. It does ignore the white space and returns those values. Notice that some cannot be converted, so 10,33 using the number method doesn't work. It returns NaN, which is not a number. And here there's no numeric value. So that's one of the methods that you can use to convert. Oh, this is fun. This is converting a date to, now we've done quite a bit with dates, right? So here a new date is created with a string, and then we use the number method on the date that will convert it to a number. And what does it do? It returns the number of milliseconds in that particular date. So that's kind of fun to go the other way. But then there's also Parse Int, and what this does is it has a string as a parameter, and it converts it to an integer. So here it converts 10 to 10. Notice if you give it decimal places that it will convert that to a number. Now let's check and see what happens here. This, is this truncating or rounding? We can't tell by just looking at one number. So let's go in here and we can see that 10 goes down to 10. What about if we make this bigger than 5? So we do 6, 3, what do we get? And so there, notice what we get. It does not round, it's just truncating. What it's doing is it's just giving you that integer before it gets to any character that wouldn't fit in an integer. And that's where you're getting that number from. So that is if you do parse int, and it'll parse the string into an integer. And it can do that. Notice just like it did with the 10 dot, it does that with 10 space as well. It'll go ahead and convert it to 10, gets to that space. It knows space is not part of a number. So it will just stop there at the 10. Doesn't work so well when the string starts with letters. All right, so as soon as it starts with letters, it says, ooh, I get to that very first thing, and I can't convert it to a number, so I stop. So it stops, and what it does is it returns NaN, which stands for not a number. It's a value that says this is not a number, and that's what gets returned when you try to do it with a string that starts with something other than a digit. Parse float does the same thing, except it actually it'll return digits after the decimal place. And so you see here on the 10.33 that it'll return that. In the case where there are no digits, it just returns the integer. It returns the complete number, which is that number without the digits. So lots of ways to work with numbers. Convert strings to numbers, convert numbers to strings, decide how many digits you want in the number. So lots of tools for working with numbers in JavaScript.